Hey everybody, welcome to Touchdown BC. I'm Ryan Sullivan. The weeks around here, they're slowing a little bit. UBC's season has come to an end. SFU's on the home stretch. BC high school football also getting to the point of playoffs, and junior football has just come to a close. Now, speaking of junior football, the Canadian Bowl was this weekend right in our own backyard, Langley, BC, featuring the Langley Rams and the Saskatoon Hilltops.
The 2014 Canadian Bowl, the Rams versus the Hilltops. Langley looking for their first national title, Saskatoon looking for their 17th. Rams start with the ball, can't do anything with it. Nathan Lund getting stuffed on this play. Saskatoon's first possession, they don't do much better. 3 and out, but a nice angle kick here by Brett Thererison. Rams in bad position, off to a bad start. Lund gets the ball stripped. Toppers Dylan Larson would fall on it. Sask starts on the 15-yard line. Jared Andrewchuk, the Hilltops pivot, steps into the pocket, pivots around the defender. It's a 13-yard TD. That's the first score of the game. Next, Rams possession. They get themselves to a 3rd and inches. They don't get it. First 3 Rams possessions, 2 of them will end in turnovers. Toppers marching. Andrewchuk finds Logan Fisher, filling in for CJFL Most Outstanding Offensive Player Wayndell Lewis. Fisher looking good here, but this drive would end on a punt. Toppers Brett Thererison with the punt. Langley's Dan English surrenders the single. Rams down 8-0. They get it going here. Jordan McCarty, younger brother to Eskimos running back Calvin, finds Malcolm Williams. Williams finds pay dirt after a good sprint and a stiff arm. Langley down by just 1 in the first. But the Toppers just chew through the Rams defense. 6 plays later, Thererison gets the field goal. 11-7 Toppers. McCarty throws to English. Nope. Derek Sadownik says thank you, takes it to the 34-yard line. Just 3 plays later, Logan Fisher filling in for Wayndell Lewis. He breaks the plane. Toppers up 11 after the convert. Rams need a shot in the arm. Dylan Tucker in on the QB sneak. Another 3rd down gamble. It's another 3rd down the Rams won't get, but the Rams D does hold Saskatoon to a 3 and out. The Toppers look like they're going for a fake. They don't. The Rams, on the other hand, first a funny formation, then another 3rd down gamble. Steve Thomas waits and waits and waits. And wait, he's out of time. Rams called for a penalty. Dylan Larson gets the pick, but it's called back. Rams turnover. Guess what that leads to? A Hilltops touchdown. Andrewchuk with a nice chuck. Evan Kopczynski hauls it in. Toppers now up 25-7. That's the score at half. Nothing going until this. Rams quarterback Jordan McCarty passes deflected back to him. He tries to get the pass away anyway, but it's an illegal forward pass, and McCarty goes down. Looks innocent, but his day would be done. Bad news for the Rams, great news for the Toppers. Andrewchuk on the play action, fakes everyone out. Evan Turkington with the easy TD. Now the Toppers are up 32-7. Hilltops on top, and they proceed to rub it in. Evan Turkington outruns the Rams D, nearly outruns the cameraman on this play. 76 yards later, it's in the bag for the Hilltops. Rams add a late one. Dylan Tucker chucks a TD to Malcolm Williams. He comes down with it with his second, but that's the game. A 39-14 final. The Toppers win their 17th national title. That's more than anyone else in the CJFL. Players of the game were Evan Turkington on offense and Dylan Larson on defense.
Hey, welcome back to Cooking with Ryan and Alex Kerrigan, our BCFC insider. Today, we're talking about how the Langley Rams were chopped up by the Saskatoon Hilltops. Now, what was your take on the Canadian Bowl?
Well, going into the food puns, there was this great quote that I heard this morning: turnovers belong in bakeries, not in football games. The Saskatoon Hilltops did not commit a single turnover. Langley Rams had 7 during the whole game. That includes 2 3rd and inches that they could not convert. I mean, you can't expect to win when you have 7 turnovers in a game. Unfortunately, you're right. The Langley Rams just got chopped up. They got completely beat. Props to the Hilltops. You know, it wasn't just the Langley Rams losing that game. It was them getting beat up by the Prairie Boys.
Yeah, now you were there. You got to see this thing firsthand. Why did the Saskatoon Hilltops have such an easy go with this?
Well, the first thing I'd like to say is the Hilltops fans must have had some kind of deal with Air Canada, because it was a 50-50 split between Saskatoon Hilltops fans and Langley Rams fans. I love seeing that kind of support, but the Hilltops perfectly played their game, and the Langley Rams offense just did not show up. Nathan Lund did not look good at all. He had a fumble. He didn't have too many carries. Jordan Traversy was his backup back. He looked pretty good, but they just could not get the run game going, and again, the Prairie Boys just shut him down. Jordan McCarty has looked so good during these 2 playoff games. He did not look good at all in the first 3 quarters. Then, of course, he gets hurt. Dylan Tucker comes in, and you could tell that the time off with Dylan Tucker really affected him. He wasn't so familiar with the playbook. It wasn't good for the Langley Rams, but props to them for getting this far. They did have a really good playoffs, 2 games with complete fourth quarter efforts with the Kamloops Broncos, the 48-46 win where they had to fight off a surging Broncos and the come from behind against Okanagan. They looked good, but unfortunately they were beat soundly by the better team.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, this isn't a complete loss of a season. They lost Canadian Bowl, but nobody thought that they were going to beat the undefeated Okanagan Sun.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it was a huge game for them to get the monkey off their back. They went up to Okanagan twice and lost it. They really need to hold their heads high off of that win over in Okanagan with the Cullen Cup, because you're right, it was a fantastic game. Unfortunately, that's not really what the players are going to be thinking about. They're going to be thinking about the second time in 3 years that they made it to a national championship and just being unable to win this game. And now they're really thinking, what do we have to do to beat these farm boys? It's going to be a big offseason for the Langley Rams.
They'll need a new recipe for 2015, huh? Yeah. The cooking show will get better next week, I promise. His name's Alex Kerrigan. He's our BCFC insider. Simon Fraser University hasn't had a ton of bright spots this season. The potential is there. They've been able to muster a few wins. It looks like the play calling and coaching is coming around. However, it is a little late in the year. With that said, could the Simon Fraser clan wrap up their final homestands with a few wins? Well, they faced a very strong Azusa Pacific this past weekend at Swangard Stadium, and, well, I'll let the highlights tell the story.
First quarter, first play, and Keenan North sets the tone early as he smacks Terrell Watson in the backfield. 2 plays later, and it was Justin Herdman who gets into the backfield and brings down Cody Jeffries for the loss. Next, a Sousa drive, and the Clan defense holds again, forcing a missed field goal, keeping the game tied at goose eggs. That is when Steven Spagnola would make his presence felt as he takes the dump off, 14 yards. Then 6 plays later on the same drive, Spagnola weaves his way 29 yards all the way down to the Cougar 4-yard line. But like all season, turnovers have plagued the Clan, and Ryan Stanford is picked off in the end zone. The Cougars would capitalize as on their ensuing possession in the second quarter. Jeffries tosses it to Grant Widmer. That's a 19-yard gain just 3 plays later, and Watson punches it in from 5 yards out, giving Azusa the 7-0 lead. Following the 4th down stop, the Clan turn it over again with a minute to go in the first half, and Azusa would capitalize again as Jeffries throws a nice ball to Ethan Zeidler, making the score 14-blank at the half. Down but not out, the Clan offense would rebound in the third as Stanford dumps it off to Ante Leader, and he rumbles for 11 yards. Later in the drive, Stanford threads one to Phil D'Entremont. That's a 9-yard score, his first of his career. A missed convert would leave the game 14-6. Gaining some momentum, the defense took it up a notch as Matt Isherwood pounces on the loose ball. SFU would not be able to take advantage as Stanford overthrows Lamar Durant, leading to a 3-and-out, and Azusa would make SFU pay. Watson busts off a 55-yard touchdown. That's the 24th of his career to best his old GNAC record for most touchdowns in a season. It gives Azusa the 21-6 lead, and that's how this game would stand. The all-out effort, not all there for SFU. Once again, they do have time to retool and rebound as they host Central Washington in this weekend's finale.
All right, a 21-6 loss at the hands of Azusa Pacific. We welcome in our insider, as always, from SFU. We've got Mackenzie Dalglish here. Mackenzie, what went wrong in this game?
Another squandered effort by the defense. They came in right off the hop. Keenan North gets in the backfield, stops Terrell Watson, leading rusher in the GNAC, almost, I think, one of the top leading rushers in all of Division II football, let alone all NCAA football. And Justin Herdman coming in with a sack. Great tone set, get the stop. Next possession, get another stop. They're giving the offense time and time again to get points scored, yet they're being let down. And both Azusa's 14 points in the first half came off turnovers, and you can't fault the defense there. And that's where it kind of came down to the end of it. 14 points off turnovers and only 6 points scored. You're not going to win many games. And Steven Spagnola, talked to him a little bit later in the episode, that just a squandered effort by him too, that he was able to perform and the rest of his team didn't.
Fair enough. You know, let's look for a silver lining here. If we can find one, what's your standout?
Well, I don't know, silver lining, Jordan Herdman, we were talking about only 19 tackles this week, 27 last week. I don't know if he's slipping there, but he's still number 2 overall in the NCAA Division II tackles. He's having a great season, but as we discussed, in a 2-win season, it's kind of getting overlooked. I asked Jacques about it, and he goes, he's having a great season. Players around him are helping him out. And then Spagnola, 70 rushing yards, 76 receiving yards. Again, a wasted effort there. He carried the offense, but the rest of the passing game couldn't get going. So that's 3 straight games now, Spagnola with over 100 all-purpose yards. And those 2 guys, Herdman and Spagnola, were kind of the 2 that stood out.
All right, a chance at revenge from that brutal border battle from earlier in the year. We got Central Washington coming into Swangard this week. What are we thinking?
Yeah, 63-7, I think, was the last time they played in,
not so good.
in a rivalry game, if you could call it that. It is senior day, though. This is a chance for the guys that have played 4 years or have transferred in. It's kind of a day for them and a chance for their friends and family to come out to see them play, maybe football for the last time in their careers. So, as Jacques Chapdelaine said after last week's game, if there's been no motivation in any other game, there should definitely be motivation in this game with a senior class off. So you hope that they can come out and kind of give a last kick at the can, if you want to say that, and send them off on a win. It would be a huge upset, considering all things from the last time they played each other. But again, it's Central Washington. They're one of the top teams. They felt that their best matchup out of their final 3 games was against Azusa. They lost 21-6, not bad against the number 1 team in the conference, 23 ranked in the nation. So this game, I don't know how it's going to go. It could be another shellacking.
Well, you will have another kick at the can. We'll have you back in next week. Our SFU insider, as always, Mackenzie Dalglish. Though the UBC Thunderbirds season is over, a boatload of questions are still up in the air for 2015. Who will take over the reins as head coach? Who will be the next starting pivot? And how many levels will the new parking lot be that caused construction in front of the stadium's front doors for the last few weeks? To get to the bottom of all this, we welcome in the Crown Countdown U panel of Jim Mullen and Andrew Wadden. All right, to give us the lowdown, and believe me, it's a very, very, very low down on the UBC 2-6 season. We have Jim Mullen, we have Andrew Wadden. The Crown Countdown U team joins us here to talk UBC football. We're going to start things out with the exclamation point at the very end of the year, start of the offseason, the coaching change. Sean Olsen let go by the team. Jim, let's start with you.
Well, I think it's too bad that you've got a great offensive mind like Sean Olsen being let go from the UBC Thunderbirds. If it's based on pure results, based on this year alone, it may be the right decision. I think overall for the whole arc of where the program is at, I think he deserved another chance in the following year, but I think he also needed some additional help. Losing an offensive coordinator like Jamie Stoddard, losing Bob Beveridge on the offensive line to coach was definitely a big minus. But I think that at the end of the day, UBC is really at a crossroads right now, moving forward when it comes to selecting a new coach.
Yeah, and Andrew, rather than naming names, what does this team need in a coach next season?
Well, they need an offensive coordinator, really. They need a coach and they need an offensive coordinator. I think that was really one of Sean's predicaments this year. I mean, obviously being an ex-quarterback and, offense basically being kind of his forte, but when you've got to handle that much, it just proved to be too much. And I think next year they're really going to have to solidify that by getting a head coach and an OC and separating the two.
But in terms of the organization, I think it goes deeper than that, and I think it goes broader than that. I think if you take a look at the athletic department itself, it's got to figure out what it's really doing with football. After the sports targeting review, they have to accept some of the blame in this in terms of pushing the coaching staff off of where their target was in the offseason and involving that staff in things that they shouldn't have been involved in terms of saving the program rather than growing the program. And I also think with the alumni, they have to come together as a group. I've been around the UBC football scene for quite some time now, either as a radio broadcaster or a television broadcaster, and I can tell you it's a very fractious group. Even guys that were on the same team compete against each other within the alumni. So it's time to put those divisions aside, time to create a long-term plan instead of jerking from year to year to year or from coach to coach to coach, and figure out what role the alumni really plays. Not just one guy with a checkbook, or not just two guys with a checkbook, but a whole group that comes together. We've seen what's gone on in Carleton in terms of a number of leaders getting together to put together a sustainable program. That thing has to happen at UBC as well.
All right, now rather than looking off the field, let's look at the product on the field. They did have some bright spots here and there throughout the year, but it took them a long time to find their legs. Where did the season go off track? And of course, you can name the very first game, but let's go deeper than that. I mean, we were talking at the start of the year about the Davis brothers. We thought they're going to be a huge hit, and it took a while for them to find them a place on the field. Where did this season go off the rails, and UBC just lost their way completely?
Well, I think really at the start, we knew they were going to have a young offensive line. They took a bit of a hit with having some veterans move on. And that was one place that they really struggled. They also really struggled at the quarterback position. And I think that's something that they're really going to struggle with moving forward as well. They're going to have to figure out a number one guy. They kind of went 1A, 1B for a little bit with Bocott and Williams. And of course, Williams was the guy at the end. But really, he wasn't enough for them. And Marcus Davis is going to be one of the biggest talents in the CIS. He's been compared to other greats of the past that we've seen come through there. But they've got to kind of solidify what they want to do with this offense. Who's going to be the guys on offense? Marcus, Terrell, with Deschamps moving along. And then, of course, with the offensive line getting another year older under their belt, it's going to help them. But they got to get the quarterback position because obviously, you don't have a good quarterback. It's going to be tough to have a good offense.
Jim?
I think they were a team in search of an identity. And the crime about that was they kind of had an identity the previous year and they didn't follow up on it. I think if there was one mistake that Sean Olsen made, especially on the offensive side of the ball, was not playing to his strengths. A lot of coaches make that mistake sometimes. They think the system is greater than the parts that they have. How do you run Brandon Deschamps? You run him into a line like quickly. You make him run straight north-south with some quick hits. They went away totally from the running game in the first half of the season. You got a 1,000-yard rusher. Yeah, I know you got two All-Canadians in your offensive line that have moved on, but you still have a 1,000-yard rusher out of the backfield. He's the guy that's going to lead the way for you, especially after you went with that 1A and 1B system at quarterback the previous year, and you don't really have a bona fide starter there. That's where Terrell Davis then follows Brandon Deschamps, and he's a different style of runner too, and he's got good hands coming out of the backfield where they could have found a way to work him in. But I think it was, quite frankly, it was a shabby treatment of Brandon Deschamps coming off that 1,000-yard season. He should have been more front and center in that offense. As for the defense, I found that, especially when I saw them in that second game versus Calgary, where things really started to come apart for them, that they were a team that technically was in position, but they were very, very passive in terms of making plays, in terms of pinning their ears back, in terms of being aggressive. I think the defensive backs picked it up a notch as the season went along, but then when we got to the end of the season again, they fell back into some of those same bad habits. So, you got the Davis brothers to build on. Brandon Deschamps may or may not be back next year. He's carrying a 4. Although it has been stated behind the scenes that he might not be coming back after his senior year. They've got some things to build on. Quarterback is huge right now. I don't know if Trevor Casey, he'll be a second-year guy next year. He hasn't got a lot of reps, hasn't been developed well. He's got a lot of leadership qualities. He could be the guy, but if you're moving forward with a new coaching staff, do you want the could be the guy leading you out of that mess? I'm not sure.
Well, now we've covered the team kind of off the field this offseason. We've covered them on the field. Let's talk about the presentation of the game. And now we have the opportunity here at Crown Countdown U in Vancouver to go to these games and see what's going on, rather than when talking about a game in Western or something, we can kind of only speculate on what we see and hear. These games we can go to, and you've gone to a lot of them, you've followed UBC on the road as well. What can be done to bring the fans back? Now we know that they will have a good-looking parking lot in front of the stadium.
That's actually pretty key, to tell you the truth.
Will there be cars to park in that parking lot?
I feel sorry for Justin McIntyre this year, the new general manager of the Thunderbirds, in terms of what he was trying to do. He said it was going to be a learning year going through this first year. to see how things worked and how things didn't work. But to basically take all the parking away over the last 3 games and have a dirt trail walking up to the main concourse was beyond ridiculous and gross mismanagement on behalf of the UBC administration and UBC management. I just can't believe anyone would be that stupid to do something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, they got to get it together. I mean, you're rolling up there and you literally have no place to park. You've got a single dirt path with a blue fence that is like, do I go down that way to get in here? Is the gate open over here? Nobody's directing you. You've got minimal game day presentation in terms of a couple of booths. NFL Canada, I don't even know if
the first game against Calgary was pretty good.
It was pretty good.
I went to that game.
Tear up the parking lot.
Yeah, they still had something to work with.
It's just like you were talked about with Justin McIntyre. I mean, the administration's doing this parking lot, and they're trying to do a season, and why are you even doing this at this point of the season?
It's a 3-month project to do the parking lot, and it's a 2.5-month season for football, and they do it at the same time.
There's absolutely no point of that whatsoever. I mean, it's stupid. You're right. Why the two aren't on the same page, and it makes me kind of question really where the football team fits in with this administration. I mean, like, we've seen the history that UBC football has. But then the administration kind of goes, well, you know, what are they? Are they here? Are we here to support them, or are they just here? And that's what they feel like right now.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We don't really know where it ranks on the priority list. I mean, they said at the start of the year, oh, we're happy we saved football, we love football, and then you go out and do something like this during the football season. But let's take a look at this. Put your media pass away for a second and look at this like a paying customer, someone that's buying a ticket to this event. What do you want to see next season out of the UBC Thunderbirds?
In terms of the on-field product, or in terms of
as everything. If
in,
you're paying to go to an event, obviously you want to see something great on the field, but what do you expect for the bang for your buck?
I want to make sure that the UBC band with all those woodwinds never plays Kashmir ever again.
They know Kashmir.
2, I want to make sure that the UBC cheerleaders don't stand there with their backs to the crowd for the entire first half before they do their dance routine. They're there to lead the crowd in the cheer squad. Third of all, in terms of a coaching staff, I just want a coaching staff that's going to stabilize things and actually continue some of the momentum that Sean Olsen had prior to this year. And I know there's talk about going with a big splashy signing, like Paul LaPolice's name just keeps coming up again. Maybe it's just because he's on TV. UBC posted on Twitter just before our taping that there's now an opening in the UBC coaching staff. On Twitter.
It's open. So if you're looking for a job,
that just came up.
It just came up right on your phone.
Yeah,
to see it. It was fantastic.
Good to know.
But stabilize the coaching. Don't go for the big home run. Just give that coach more support around him.
Yeah.
You know, when you take a look at the successful staffs in the CIS. Laval Rouge et Or have 6 full-time coaches. Montreal has 5 full-time coaches. Western's got 4 full-time coaches and a graduate assistant. UBC has 3. Okay, so put together a real staff. Don't load it all on the head coach, and give him a full 5 years to do his job with some real support. If the coach asks the alumni that I need A, B, C, and D, give them A, B, C, and D. Don't give them D, E, F, and G, which has happened to Sean Olsen, Ted Gavaya, Lou Delorier, and Jay Prepchuk all along the way. They've all been sidetracked.
A good coach lost his job that shouldn't have lost his job. The alumni needs to step up with this team. We're seeing it with Laval. We're seeing it with Carleton in Ontario. There's people out there.
We see it in Calgary, man.
We're seeing it in Calgary. There is that field has one of the biggest alumni's name on it. Step up and start doing something for this team, because I mean the Thunderbirds themselves, I mean they are a piece of the CIS that if they were to go away, that would just be ridiculous. And the fact that we're seeing what we're seeing now, you go to those games, you're asking what we need. They need speakers to work inside the stadium.
Yeah.
They need people out there driving things on campus to get people out there.
They need to fix some of the seats.
Exactly. They are in a spot, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't like going up to Thunderbird Stadium. It takes me a long time to get up there. I live in East Vancouver. It takes me a while to get there, even when I'm driving. And by the time I get up there, there's nothing that's grabbing me to be there. Yeah, the team struggled this year. That's fair. But when it's a place where you can go, you know, you can have fun and maybe see a good football game, well, then that's all the best right there. But the fact that you go up there and even when the team's good, the whole presentation itself just lacks.
But even when the team's good, like back in 2011, fans started to show up again towards the end of the season. Usually it tapers off when they're middling about, but they started to show up.
Well, how about at the start of the season? The first game of the year, they set a record.
Well, they had their best crowd in 10 years with 4,470 at the game.
And they followed it up with
their worst crowd in 4 years with 840 at the game.
And that game was done in the first quarter.
Yeah, it was.
Calgary took them to the woodshed, and that's not going to help. And when you got a lackluster presentation in itself, it's not going to keep the fans.
You know what's not a lackluster presentation? Crown Countdown U, and these are the gentlemen that join me weekly, Jim Mullen and Andrew Wadden. All right, high school football is gearing up. We're heading into the postseason, partially in the AA divisions. Let's take a look at how things went down in both AAA and AA.
Let's take a look now at your AAA scoreboards. And here is a look at some AA action. And now let's take a look at your AAA standings, starting with the East. And now here are your Western Conference AAA standings. Now let's take a look at your AA standings throughout the province.
All right, we welcome in our BC High School Football Insider, as always, Dino Jeremiah. Now, we tried the Cooking With set, we tried the Roundtable set, now we're going to switch it up. We got the live talk show going on here.
That's great.
Yeah, we'll see how well it works out. We'll start things out with a AAA variety, and we have New Westminster losing to South Delta. Your thoughts?
Well, I think we've all been watching South Delta just to see where they're at. Huge win earlier in the year against Vancouver College, then coming back and losing to Mount Doug. And for them to beat New West, it just means that they're in that next group and they're pushing that top four that we've talked about so often here. So a predictable win. Look forward to seeing what they will do in the playoffs.
And now we'll touch on a couple noteworthy games in AA variety.
Yeah.
We have Abbotsford upsetting Mission, and we got Hugh Boyd over Pitt Meadows.
Yeah, I think Abbotsford, kudos to them, beating Mission, ranked #1. That's always a huge game when you can knock somebody off. And going into the playoffs, so they may be a team to watch as we go into the playoffs here. Hugh Boyd has silently done a lot of great things. They're undefeated. And they're well coached. They got Bill Haddo there. I know they did a story in the Sun on their team, and Coach Chris Beaton. So there's not too many teams that are going to be able to outcoach those guys. And for them to be starting to hit a stride undefeated going into the season, I expect big things from Hugh Boyd.
Yeah, and it's good to see. Now, and like we always enjoy doing here in this section, we like to touch on the latest and greatest, the happenings at Football BC.
Well, we're, as we made the announcement last week with the Tanoa Bowl, so we're excited about that, and really just gearing up and hoping everybody starts looking at the combines that we have offered through January and February for our 2015 edition of our BC teams, provincial teams. So make sure that you get out there and register for the combines coming up and be a part of our provincial programs.
There you go. His name is Dino Jeremiah. He's our BC High School Football Insider. Thanks for joining us here on Touchdown BC. We've had a great time, shared some laughs, and split custody on a few smiles. My name's Ryan Sullivan, and I'll see you 1 week from right now.